shop for summer clothes. Think pink if you want that kelp that shows. Red is dead, blue is through, green's obscene, brown's taboo, and there is not the slightest excuse for plum abuse or chartreuse. Think pink.
G'day, gorgeous. So this week I thought I'd talk to you again about spirit. And one of the things that I've been doing just recently is having a little bit of a look at whether or not, from an injury perspective, I could go back to doing belly dancing, because belly dancing is one of those things that I really enjoy doing, and I find that, you know, I really kind of miss it. I just miss the enjoyment of being able to move my body that way. But I've stopped doing belly dancing because I couldn't I've got a shoulder injury and a neck issue, and so some of the stuff that came up was about I don't know that I can move my arms that way, especially when I was doing the arm movements, because if I lift my arms up for too long, like, it can cause some issues. But I ended up doing a workshop in collaboration with a colleague of mine who is a physiotherapist last Saturday, and we were talking about impacting things that impact us in terms of pain. And he's done a lot of his own research, and coincidentally I'd also done some stuff looking at how we treat pain. And I'm very much aware that there is a lot of pain stuff that comes from trauma. And in my case, you know, the neck and shoulders came from an accident that I had some time ago. So it reminded me that I needed to do some more work around, like some more therapeutic work around that particular accident in order to try and relieve some of the pain. But it was just really interesting because in some of the other stuff that my colleague Dave was talking about, he was actually highlighting the fact that sometimes when we talk about the impacts of pain, we've got this kind of joint part of this physical and psychological. And at one point he was kind of pointing so much towards the psychological components of pain that I'm thinking, wow, Dave, you're a physio and you're actually kind of putting yourself out of business. But no, what he was saying was that just in terms of how we treat physiologically, that we need to keep it in mind that we also need to treat the psychological, because there is this joint component of what happens around, you know, how the body is reacting to pain. And I know, like, it's legitimate, my muscles are extremely tense at different points in time. And he was talking about one of the techniques that physios use, which is called dry needling. And then what dry needling does to the muscle is about releasing a particular I don't know, hormone or whatever it does in response to, you know, being jabbed, really. And that actually causes then the muscle to relax. And it was just interesting, this kind of connection that we have between body and mind that a lot of Western sort of medicine and philosophies don't ever get. And one of the biggest things that Dave was talking about in terms of some of the recovery stuff was also about the benefits of meditation. And in my case, if you've read Define Your Inner Diva, I talk about meditation and yoga techniques and the similarities between the two, because yoga actually does quite a few meditation techniques as part of it, as part of that kind of process. And we talked about breathing techniques. So one of the things that we know that really helps the brain in terms of helping to rebalance some of the emotional systems is when we're able to oxygenate the brain. So our blood, getting our blood flow sort of moving better. We can get that oxygenation when we kind of focus on our breathing or slow our breathing when we do things like meditation or yoga, what they call in yoga pranayama. But you can also do it, for those of you who might have seen Wim Hof, and I've talked about Wim Hof briefly in another video, but he does this thing, you know, where he does this breathing technique that seems to draw in more oxygen into the blood. And that also has a similar kind of effect on the brain. And I was just really struck by the awareness that there are certain things that we do that really help us when it comes down to how we manage our own, you know, stress and emotional kind of responsiveness or reactions to things. And, you know, some of those are not just physical, but also that if we're not managing our stress, that's actually usually when physical pain can come up. And that's where spirit really comes into its own. So I say, when you've replenished your whole life, or you've reviewed it, and you've got this idea about where you want to go moving forward, that the idea about spirit is to try and find that thing or several things that make it so that you can do that in a way that feels like you're constantly getting some input, a replenishment coming back in that makes you feel better. And in my case, I talk about dancing, I talk about yoga, I talk about a number of those things that kind of help bring this sense of calm and relaxation and stability back into my life. And that helps to balance out the stuff that I give out, particularly, if I'm doing therapy work or whatever. So there's that energy exchange that I get when I'm giving out to other people, and we have to talk about how we rebalance that by putting that positive energy back in. And I talk about energy, we're aware that in sort of the traumatic stuff that we have, if you go back and have a look at the Trouble with Trauma videos, I talk about how energy changes within the body based on energy in the environment, and how our body vibrates in response to those environmental impacts. So getting in touch with our spirit is one of the things that helps to keep us balanced, helps to keep that energy input coming in on a continuous basis, so that we can continue to, give out to others, but also give you that continuous awareness about how you can make that continuous improvement in your life on an ongoing basis. All right, I hope that was useful. See you soon.
And that includes the kitchen sink. Pink, 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 pink.